All set? All right, I'm going to call the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, October 23rd to order. And the first item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any additions or deletions? Okay, we do have an executive session on contracts again after this meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, next is approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. Let's first deal with the Creek Road site visit meeting minutes from October 9th.
I'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Any amendments or additions that anybody would like to make to those minutes?
No, I like their pictorial enhancement.
I agree that,
We should do that in all the minutes, actually.
A picture says 1,000 words.
Sitting here.
Someone making a point, you see, they're wagging their fingers.
okay, so all in favor of approving the Creek Road site visit meeting minutes as drafted, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Next is the approval of the regular business meeting minutes for October 9th.
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Heather.
Are there any additions, deletions, amendments to those?
I have just a couple of minor ones. Okay, let me get to it. Just a sec.
I have one and I know where it is.
Okay,
Go ahead first,
You
if
want
you
me to jump in or
Go
you?
ahead.
Okay. So line 202.
that's the one.
Oh,
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, it's starting the sentence that starts in 202. He also thinks the use of it for jogging, biking, and agricultural use, but doesn't think the town should spend money to keep it open, etc. So it's something
Looks
in.
like it's missing
Yeah,
something there.
the sentence wasn't finished. I think I did finish, but anyway. I think I thought that the use of it for jogging, biking, and agricultural was proper.
Okay, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
suggest, something to that effect.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, that would be generally.
Okay,
Also
um,
thinks the use of
a
it for
good
jogging,
thing.
biking, and agricultural use was proper, just insert
Yeah,
was proper.
yeah, I think
Okay.
that would be fine.
is
I mean,
Or is proper,
yeah.
that isn't I'm not sure whether that's exactly what I said, but
I
that's
think you
fine.
said something like that, is
Something.
good or should be preserved
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that.
thank you, though.
Okay.
I should have checked.
Okay, and then on line 277, a little further down, where we're talking about the renewable energy policy, I think there's just missing language there too, where it says on line 277, Artem disagreed with him, but as a lot of these renewable, I was gonna say energy options
I think it was actually
Um,
probably technologies.
or technologies don't have long-term
Yeah.
estimates.
Like Victor, I don't remember the exact word, but that would have been the intent.
Minor,
Thank you.
that's it.
Okay,
I
any
didn't have
other?
it. I didn't have anything else.
Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the minutes with the minor amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm abstaining from both,
Okay, yeah,
to be
right.
clear.
So on both of those minutes, we have an abstention. Okay. Next is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for anybody who's not on the agenda, and I think, Chief, you have an introduction for us, right?
I do. Folks, this is our newest police officer, Nick Stewart. Nick grew up here, right in the area. His mom works for the counseling service, so it's nice to have homegrown talent come back to us. So Nick is right now, he was a police officer in Brandon for a little over a year, so he's got all his basic training in, so we don't have to go through the whole academy rigmarole as we usually do. He's spending about 3 weeks with us, learning policies, learning how we do things, riding along with different officers on different shifts, just kind of get a feel of how we do policing here in Middlebury. And he's got about a week and a half to go, and he'll be out on his own.
All right.
Excellent.
Welcome to the big city.
Yeah,
Welcome aboard. Thank you for letting me come.
yeah,
I'll have an easy time remembering your name.
yeah,
Welcome aboard.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Welcome aboard. Really happy to have you join us. Welcome.
See you again. Nice to meet you.
Yep, we shook already, but.
Welcome.
Okay.
Well, good candidates are hard to find, and I think we did well here.
Yeah.
Great.
Now
Welcome.
he's going back to work.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you, it's nice to meet you.
Take care, same here.
Is there any, I think everybody else I see is on the agenda. Karen?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm here tonight for, to get approval for Kathleen to execute an easement to Vermont Gas for we have an existing main line, 6-inch main line on Route 7 South, and we also are feeding the Department of Public Works, as you know, with a 3/4-inch natural gas line, and we would like to tap into that line to provide natural gas service to the Daniel residence, which is located behind the Public Works Department. So we'd like to get an easement from the town for that. Pretty straight and simple, and like I said, we've got the infrastructure there. We're just going to be the new infrastructure will just be the diagonal line off of the Public Works Department. Right, perfect, right there.
Kathleen, did we get anything back from Benj on that? Did I miss
Yeah,
it?
Benj has reviewed this, and Dan Werner has also
Yes,
been working with
I
Karen.
actually have been working with Dan on it for a few months anyway, to make sure we got the exact location. We've been going back and forth on a couple different locations, and this has been the best, most feasible location according to Dan and the Public Works, and it worked for us as well.
So this location is good, Dan? Concur. Questions?
Seems pretty straightforward.
Comments?
I know that I'm on record of, being against the pipeline, and I can understand that a lot of residents and some of our department heads are looking at conversion to natural gas, and I can understand the cost savings that they see, the immediate cost savings. I understand that. And I understand that it's a cleaner burning fuel, and that's an advantage of natural gas. But I do want to be on record again of saying that we are very concerned about what we're learning, what we're continuing to learn about methane leaks, and that it's very damaging to the atmosphere, far more damaging than carbon, or some of the other greenhouse gases. So I'm just weighing that always when we're looking at these decisions, and I also wonder as we begin to reckon with this as at the national level, whether the cost will be as advantageous as we currently see it. And that's something that we really should be looking at, into our future, both as residents and as local officials. So I just want to say that.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any other comments? Okay, pleasure of the board.
Well, I'd make a motion to authorize our town manager, Kathleen, to sign the easement deed for Vermont Gas to install a natural gas line across the parking lot at the Public Works facility to provide service to the Daniel property at 1036 Route 7 South. And do you want to have both of them at once?
No, one at a time.
That's what I thought.
One second. Moved and seconded. Comments? Okay, all in favor, signify. I don't think so. We've got a motion from the floor. I'm sorry I missed you, Ross. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I abstain.
And one abstention.
And the second motion is to authorize Kathleen Ramsey, our town manager, to work with council to initiate a Section 1061 process for the conveyance of town land.
Second again. Conveyance of town land. Okay. Questions?
Again, I just want to say that, we did have this discussion earlier about the consideration of something to the town in lieu of our giving these easements, these rights-of-way easements, so I'm not really seeing that reflected, although maybe it just hasn't been presented that way. We have our police department looking at conversion to natural gas, and I know that a different agency is installing the conversion system, but I don't know. I'm just thinking about that, like, and how Vermont Gas could be acknowledging our effort to cross our public rights-of-way with some cost saving somewhere.
So your police department is converting to natural gas?
Well, they're looking at it tonight.
It's on Chief's, it's
Okay,
on the
okay.
agenda.
Okay, and so, and you haven't talked to anybody at Vermont Gas to talk about energy efficiency rebates or anything like that? Is that,
Well,
Right.
are you the person?
yeah.
Which beard?
Oh, so we can certainly do that, of course,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would appreciate that.
We actually have several departments looking at least as a short-term move to cost savings that they can hopefully bank and go to other alternatives.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
I think it'd be a nice way to support the town for all the support the town's given Vermont Gas.
Absolutely. Who's the person I should,
Town manager.
okay.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'll abstain.
Any abstention? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dan?
Okay, the first item up for your approval is a contract for replacing a portion, or I should say repair of the library boiler. This was brought in front of the Infrastructure Committee, and the committee's recommendation was to award a contract to Plouffe for a cost of $1,762 for some work to repair the boiler. They believe it will just be 2 sections of those multi-plate boiler pieces to replace. Dana had found some information from 2014 when they were there and done, I guess, some inspection on the work, some leakage before that, and said it looks like those two pieces are the ones that are causing the problem. And so that helped us decide that that's where we should go rather than a full replacement. So the original proposal to us had a 60% prepayment requirement. Dana did talk to them, and they dropped that requirement basically because they've done business with the town before, and the town pays bills appropriately and quickly, and therefore it wasn't necessary.
Yep.
So that part's gone. So we're asking the board to approve Plouffe's proposal of $7,262 to repair the boiler.
Questions of Dan?
So Luther's comments at the infrastructure was that when you replace just a couple and not the whole structure, that you have leakage issues, and that's what they've seen at the college.
Right.
Plouffe didn't think that was gonna be a concern here.
Didn't ask them if that was a concern. Luther's comments was about, should we look at replacing the boiler and the whole boiler and save some money that way, or not save some money, but be maybe not as expensive. The problem was getting those pieces down into the basement. We talked after the meeting, and he said, I said, it's $1 million, or it's 1 million BTU of boiler. And he goes, oh, that's not going to work. The thought of being, maybe if it's just 2, should you replace, more sections or whatever?
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought he was saying the plate, the gaskets in between the
Yeah.
individual plates, when you just replace a couple rather than all of them at once,
Right.
they were having leaking issues because they never match up. So I thought his suggestion was we price replacing all of just the plates, whatever the plates were, so
Right.
maybe I misunderstood.
No, I think you're correct. I think his thought was that you could not replace all the boiler pieces, but just replace the
The sections where the gaskets are, where we're seeing leaking now,
right,
yes.
yeah.
Okay. But they're gonna still take it apart.
Yes.
And they may find that,
There's more,
that they'll, okay.
yeah.
Other questions, comments?
Well, so I understand from the notes that we need it now to get through the next heating season while we research, whatever the future heating system is gonna be for the building. So I think I understand that, correct?
Correct.
And we don't know until we get into the heating system how extensive it will be, which is what we always learn about these older systems, including the one that was in our old town office. So I guess we'll be biting hard and keeping our fingers crossed. So I think I understand, and I understand that it's a sole source procurement because of the expertise of this vendor. But I do notice, it seems, in the last couple of meetings that we have been hearing more and more reason to consider sole source procurement, and I'm just looking at that trend, and just thinking about that. Not for this particular one, because I can't see an alternative, but I do know, even with a favored vendor that has experience, it's good for them to feel an edge of competition coming from another bid. And I do understand that we're probably all overworked and it could be hard getting those other bids, but I just want us to be careful about that.
It was, in addition to experience, it was also their familiarity with this particular unit and the history they have had working on this unit already. So they're very familiar with.
Yeah, I understand that, and that's why I say, I'll support this, but I'm just
I hear you.
wanting to
I'm on the same page.
be
but-
sure.
You don't want it to become a policy.
I know, I have to do it
That's
in my
fair.
work too, and I can see how it
Yeah.
happens, because you get satisfied with a vendor,
Yeah.
so I understand it. Just think we have to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
That's it?
I'll make a motion to award a contract to Plouffe Boiler and Mechanical Service under the sole source purchases exemption to the town purchasing policy to repair the library boiler for a total cost of $7,262. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
The second item is to award a contract to Aqua Solutions. This is to rebuild a pump at the main wastewater pump station. The cost estimate is $37,600. Bob Wells brought this request to the Infrastructure Committee. This company has also repaired or rebuilt, I should say, the other two 150 horsepower pumps at the main pump station. That's the pump station located at the old wastewater plant site. So those three pumps pump probably about 95% of the wastewater that goes to the treatment plant. So he's had good experience with that company before. There aren't many companies in New England that do this. So he's very comfortable with their capabilities based on experience from the last two rebuilds. This is a budgeted item that he knew was coming up, and so that is already in the budget. It's nothing out of the ordinary for that. So I'm asking the board to award a contract to Aqua Solutions for $37,600 to repair the third pump at the main pump station.
I'll make a motion to award a contract to Aqua Solutions under the sole source purchases exemption of the town purchasing policy to repair the third and final Ingersoll dresser centrifugal. That's quite a try to tongue twister. Centrifugal. Did I say that right?
Centrifugal.
Yeah, pump The big pump at the pump station, for a total cost of $37,600.
I'll second. So I did go back.
Luck with that one, Beth.
To the notes to verify, and this was, I agree with Laura's concern, but they're holding the same price that we've had in prior rebuild, so, and here we are another year later,
I
so.
know.
I agree, we need to make sure that we're not developing such a familiar relationship that we forget to be competitive, so. Any
We are-
questions?
You know, I am, and we do discuss it at infrastructure
Yeah.
committee too, and I think we just are going through a coincidence of purchases that it just makes sense right now, so.
Well, there've been a number of small ones that we've budgeted for and been looking at for a while, so.
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
The third item, and Tom can come and help with this one, is conversion of the police department heating system from propane to natural gas. Tom brought this to the infrastructure committee last week, whatever, and 2 weeks ago. Anyway, to repipe the building, as you change from propane to natural gas, the pipe size has to be enlarged. And so he got a quote from VHV to convert the piping. They would go along the outside and top of the building on the roof to enlarge the pipe size, and that quote was $9,800. So we are requesting the board to approve a contract to VHV for repiping the police department facility for $9,800.
Are there questions? I've got someone out here.
Not that I haven't already.
Ross?
It's important to consider, as you decide on this proposal, that natural gas is having a huge impact on climate. Even the EPA has admitted it has a bigger effect than they originally thought, and this research shows that its climate impact due to the release of methane is as bad as coal. So natural gas, to burn it, is as dirty as coal ultimately. Maybe not right at the nozzle head, but if you look at the whole line. And the destabilization of the climate, the crisis that it's causing, it's not an exaggeration to say it threatens the ability for continued organized human existence. Okay, that includes the town of Middlebury, by the way. So it's kind of ironic that our police department, which is the main source of providing safety in our community, is leading the way to convert to a fossil fuel that could potentially have, and is already having big effects and could have devastating effects on this community, not to mention other communities around the world, in the globe, who's already having some of those effects. Laura talked earlier when she mentioned that natural gas burns cleanly. Well, it turns out natural gas isn't the only fossil fuel option you have that burns cleanly. If you really want to do something and you don't want to get a renewable energy source powered heating system, which would be the thing to really do if we're serious about this crisis that we're facing, then putting in an oil burner would be better, because the entire state has switched to low sulfur, ultra low sulfur oil fuel. And the Brookhaven National Laboratory has done studies on it, and they say that the emissions from this ultra low sulfur fuel is so close to zero, it's, in their words, equivalent to burning natural gas. And it's better in the end because it's not as dirty as coal. Yes, petroleum has problems and issues, but its impact on the climate is not as bad as coal or natural gas. And so I would really encourage you to rethink this proposal in light of this situation that we're collectively facing, because to continue to put in infrastructure to burn fossil fuels, especially the dirtiest of fossil fuels, which is having a big impact with the fracking on communities. Up in Canada, the whole idle no more, with people are rising up against the extraction of the gas and the tar sands up there and all around the country. To keep doing that, it's suicidal. And I'm not into suicide, collective or otherwise. And so I'd really like you to reconsider this proposal and look at something different. Thank you.
So I do have concerns about climate and do hear what Ross and Laura are saying. The additional life expectancy of this unit, Chief Hanley, is 10 years at the outside?
I'm guessing that how we've maintained it and speaking with the techs, we're about midlife on the equipment.
So we
So
may,
we have another 15 years.
okay, so let's say,
Maintained well.
let's say 10. We will have to replace that unit, and hopefully in that time, there's an even better alternative, you know. I don't know, I think we're okay. I'm okay, even though it's not good, I'm okay, and in the meantime, take steps to come up with a heating source for that building that will be better, but it's gonna take a little time to do that.
What are you okay with? I'm not clear.
Converting.
Okay.
Chief?
I would just add, we don't have any options at this point. We're not changing any equipment, we're just changing the feed system for the fuel. To change our entire heating system would be a major capital cost, probably somewhere north of $200,000. And that includes the delivery system inside the building, the stuff on the roof. This is simply changing the fuel and changing the nozzles on some of the pipes. So it's not a capital investment, we're not changing anything, it's a stopgap. You've known the problems we've had with propane deliveries over the years. It's impossible to budget for. 1 year we get 3 deliveries, the next year we get 1. Throws the budget out of whack. This is a monthly billing. I can actually anticipate what we're going to spend on fuel. You know, until such time when there can be some capital planning to determine what sort of fuel system or what sort of heating system you need to have on that building. This is just kind of a stopgap measure, reduces our cost, makes it easier for us to have a uninterruptible fuel supply into the building. We'll still use propane for the generator.
And you have 6 units you're converting, right?
There's 6 units and 1 on the roof. We changed one of the heating units for the water heat to a heat pump about a year ago. But these we can't change. They would have to have a wholesale change, just remove all the equipment and put in an entire new system. That was the biggest cost of building the building. That was at the time, I believe, a little over $250,000 to put the heating system in and air handling system. You now have to have a separate air handling system as well as a separate heating system. But again, down the road, we're midlife on this equipment. We don't need to change it right now. And I don't suppose there's any money to do that with anybody. So this was a situation we could save some money right off the bat. By the time it gets hooked up, we start saving money. And we can look down the road. Some of the other energy efficient things we have are in our budget proposal this year. Eliminate some of the heat loss through the windows and some other things. So we are taking steps one at a time. But as I said, it's midlife. And I don't see the efficiency in changing a system that works before its useful life is over.
Judy, did you have something?
Yeah, one to indicate that Ross isn't the only one in the room that feels like he does. This being a stopgap measure, I think continually across the country, around the world, we keep kicking the can down the road. And at some point in time, we're going to be paying the piper. And so we're doing this to save money now, and we are going to be paying so much more money later. That's the bottom line.
Our only option at this point is to continue with propane.
Right.
That's the only option we have.
Right, converting to a different type of fuel or source, as Chief Hanley said, is a whole capital project that we've not anticipated or budgeted for or planned for or anything at this point.
Can you explain again, so we have an oil heating system, is that, no?
It's propane.
It's
Oh,
propane.
the propane, so what did you mean by a backup? What's the oil?
Our generator runs on propane, we can't run it on natural gas
They're not running
Okay, so it's
any-
just for the generator?
for the generator. It also gives us the option, should we have to, we're leaving our existing system in place. The old piping is gonna stay in place. Should there be some interruption in natural gas service, it wouldn't take us long to convert back to propane. We have the tanks, we have the infrastructure. So it just gives us some redundancy.
So again, so the generator requires propane, but the heating of the day-to-day heating of the building is oil?
It's propane.
No, it is,
It's the
okay.
other
We
way.
have no
But they
oil.
will
There's no
convert it.
oil at the
They're
police station.
changing it from propane to natural gas is what Chief is
Yeah, we don't have a furnace.
asking for.
We have no boiler, we have no furnace.
Okay,
These are 6 rooftop units
okay.
that operate on propane at this time.
Okay, why was I hearing you say that there's oil?
There's not.
You
Oh,
didn't, Ross brought up
okay.
oil.
Ross brought up the
No.
oil.
Okay,
To change to an oil system means you scrap the existing system and then you have to just rebuild
mhm,
the entire system. Then you'd have to have another one that to run the air system.
mhm.
These run both, these 6 rooftop units run the heating and cooling.
So this is
All right,
discussing funding so we already approved,
Mhm.
Chief, converting
know.
from propane to natural gas. What we're doing is approving the piping necessary to bring the natural gas in to the burner.
right,
Yeah,
so,
the initial price came when VHB looked at the system, the rep came and
Yeah.
looked at the system. And so all you have to do is change the nozzles. Your existing piping system is fine. VHB gave us an estimate to do that for a little over $2,000. When they came to do the install in August, they realized the piping system is inadequate and we needed a larger gauge pipe.
Yeah.
so have we spent the 2,000 already?
No,
No,
we haven't spent anything. on it.
anything, okay.
And that's the thing, this is a straightforward, simple fuel conversion at this point. We're not replacing the system, as Chief has mentioned out. Changing this extensively is not necessarily a simple task. You know, you enter into situations where you may require an extra level of ducting. You can, if you don't do it right, from engineers I've worked with on some very old buildings that have converting, you end up with microclimates that are problematic in the building. So it really has to be properly engineered. It's an extensive effort. We probably have to upgrade the generator to handle the loads of presumably electrical-driven system. This is a simple conversion, and if we were to spend the money at this point, if we had the money, this is not the building I would put it in to do a massive conversion in. We have other buildings, notably the Public Works building, that is a much bigger energy hog, and I'd rather spend the money there to reduce the energy demand on that building.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, we've already approved this. This is a simple fuel conversion. It's not the ultimate answer, but it's the answer to get us through this next decade or a little bit beyond that until we're able to actually budget and take care of this building properly.
I have no facility there to put a boiler. There's no place in
That's
the
right.
building to put a furnace or a fuel oil tank or any kind of other tank. The tanks that we have are owned by Suburban.
Right.
They're owned for that, but we have no place in the building since everything's on the roof.
Right.
Pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to award a contract to VHV to repipe the police department facility in preparation for conversion to natural gas for a total cost of $9,800.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any final comments?
Yes, so again, like, why wouldn't we be fast-tracking research on heat pumps, let's say? Because, there something about that particular building that doesn't make it conducive to heat pumps that we learned from the energy audit that was done?
I think I'm sorry, do you want to answer?
And I know we need a backup,
I don't have any information on how to install the heat pumps in that building or what it would take. Clearly, with electricity, I'd have to upgrade the electrical work. Somebody would have to.
so
engineer
there's
it so
that,
it's done
okay,
right.
for example.
This was
Okay.
our option. Our option right now is natural gas and propane. Until such time we had a longer-term plan to get an engineer in there to figure out what exactly we needed. And, this is money saving pretty quick. Or stay with propane.
Right, so propane, Ross, is the same,
I believe propane is a constituent of natural gas.
mhm. Okay, I know that we're looking at this for our fire department too, that they're hoping to convert to natural gas too, so we're gonna have that proposal brought to us in due time. And so it's another situation like this, and to your point, Nick, I can see where you wanna be paying attention to your big energy hogs in terms of looking at conversion, eventually our library, or the buildings that are really operated 24/7, and this one is. That's why I do pause with this one, because it's a building that has to be fueled 24/7.
Yes.
I don't know, it's a tough one.
It's not an ideal answer,
mhm.
but it's the best of the choices we have at this point, given the constraints we're facing right now. So it makes absolutely sense to do this right now. And start to realize, again, some stabilization in the cost, which maybe we can find a way to use that money for some other purpose that would improve efficiency. That's obviously a bigger discussion, but at least this point, it's a stabilization, and it takes care of an issue that's there right now.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. If there's no other burning comments, I'm going to call the vote here. So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
I'm gonna
An
abstain.
abstention?
I'm abstaining also.
2 abstentions. Okay, Chief.
When the building was constructed, we weren't required to put disability accessible doors on the building, and we've realized people with some kind of ambulatory disability can't get into the building if they had to. So this is something we looked into, and we wrote some specifications of what we wanted for doors. They're automatic door openers, both the interior and exterior doors. We submitted bids, advertised it. We got 3 bids. One from Stanley Technologies in New Hampshire over by Portsmouth was the low bid at $3,814. The local bidder, Middlebury Lock, was the high bidder at $6,860. Royal Glass and Rutland was in the middle. They both bid on the exact same product. There was no difference between the 2 bids. I didn't find anything that derogatory about the low bidder, either as a company. They're a fairly large company. They do work all over New England. I don't know anything about their equipment. I've never seen it, but their equipment is in use in a lot of places, and I just did not find anything derogatory about it. My only concern is, at some point, if this system needed service, is do we have, what's going to cost us to service this door should it break? We have a budget in capital improvements of $6,000. What we removed from the bid was the requirement to install the electrical work. I would just prefer we had our local electrical vendor, Peck Electric, who's done work in that building, install the electric rather than bringing in some unknown electrical service, so that we at least have somebody that's familiar with what we have for electricity and circuits in the building. So we're going to do that ourselves. That's still got to come within that $6,000 budget. Royal Glass put the doors in, the same doors they're bidding here, in the library a few years ago. So that's where we're at now. Again, it's a low bid situation. I have no reason to reject or be unhappy with the low bid. Just that one concern is, in the future, what's it going to cost to service these doors when the local people that do that don't service this equipment? And that was the only concern I have. Royal Glass is out of Rutland. They're fairly close. Middlebury Lock, obviously, is right in the Marble Works.
So you're saying the local ones don't service it?
No, they do a different type of equipment.
Okay.
And but you said it's the same as the library?
Yes.
So, but they haven't had to have it serviced yet?
Not that equipment, no.
Okay.
The company in New Hampshire has a different equipment than what was
Oh,
installed
okay.
in the library.
They're slightly different?
Yes.
Okay. And the doors are still manual? I mean, can they still be
Oh, yeah.
operated manually?
Yes,
Okay,
you can
like the
operate it
library.
manually.
Okay, so
We
if
can-
it breaks, you can still use the door?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're standard doors. They met all the bid specifications with warranties and things like that.
Okay.
I'll move.
Questions? Pleasure of the board, go ahead.
I'll move to award the contract to Stanley Access Technologies for the purchase and installation of the power door openers for the police station, vestibule and lobby, for a total cost of $3,814.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any final comments?
My only one is, are you asking also for the $500 for the electrical installation, or should we include that in?
No, because I don't have exactly what that cost is going to be. That's an estimate based on work that they've done before to put in 2 circuits for this.
Okay,
If it's a simple wiring job, it'll come in less than that.
okay.
I didn't anticipate this to be a large cost.
Okay.
They're familiar with the building, they know where to run the circuits or where to take the power from. They know how to mark up our plans so that we continue our as-built plans that are accurate.
Well, that's why I'm just wondering, should we just add it as a not to exceed on top of?
Can that be approved by you, Kathleen?
I can approve.
You can
it.
approve that straight, okay.
I don't think that needs
Then
to
that's
come to
fine,
us,
then,
yeah.
then end of question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed? All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Chief. Judy?
Thank you.
You have to lift
You
up.
have to pick up the other side.
I'll stand.
Why don't you just grab that
Here,
one?
Here,
Here.
No, they've got one.
Now we have 3. Yeah.
Do we need to introduce
Sure.
Judy Weiger-Gross?
Would you please use the,
Judy
yeah, no, I know,
Weiger-Gross.
it's just a matter of hearing you, that's all.
And Leslie Kameny.
And we're here to request approval of the draft of the Town of Middlebury tree policy that you have in your packets. And also to request approval of or acceptance of the Arbor Day proclamation.
Okay, has everybody had an opportunity to look through now? Those are the draft tree policy, those are amendments to a policy that was already in existence, or is this an all-new?
Yes.
There was highlighted changes and stuff.
Oh, and the reason for that is the first draft went before the Infrastructure Committee. It went to the Conservation Commission first. They didn't have questions or concerns. It then went to the Infrastructure Committee, and they did have some questions, or they wanted some clarification. And so the fuchsia comments are the modifications or the clarifications that I made.
All right, thank you for the, it wasn't clear to me reading it if those were changes to policy that was
No.
pre-existing, or?
This is a new document.
Okay,
And by passing this tree policy and Arbor Day proclamation, it would begin to qualify the town to become a Tree City USA through arborday.org. And that enables the town to apply for grants, being a member, being a Tree City USA, that if you are not able to apply for them.
Take one at a time, shouldn't we, I think?
yes, absolutely, one at a time. Let's deal with the tree policy first. And this has been before your committee
It's been for the committee twice.
twice.
It came before the committee and we had considerable questions, changes, suggestions, and then you guys went back to the tree committee, and then they brought it back again, and then we recommended that final version.
So there was a number of things in here that are prescriptive in nature. There was nothing that I assume Chris Cioli and his committee have looked at
Yes,
this?
he was here for the last infrastructure committee, and he's a member of the committee that
Yeah.
Judy and Leslie are on, and he was part of writing this policy.
And Dan, as far as town processes and procedures, this is,
Yep, and Bill
Workable?
Kernan, too. And myself and Bill Kernan have also reviewed
Right.
it.
okay?
Yeah. So I like that it positions us for grant money, that we can put toward the health of our town forest, and I'm glad that you're watching that for us. So I don't have any other questions. I would move it if we're ready. the first one.
Please.
So I'll move that we adopt the Town of Middlebury tree policy.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any other questions or comments?
This looks like a good document.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it looks like good work. I think we should make sure that we keep an observation of how it works functionally and make sure that there's adequate leeway to make sound decisions and not get boxed in the corners. So, but I think, there's a lot of work put into this and we appreciate it. So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Would you care to make the other
I'll
motion?
move that we sign this select board, authorize our town manager, is it?
No, you're gonna sign it.
Or we do, okay, that we sign the Arbor Day proclamation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, leads us to our giant conundrum of Creek Road and discussion of the next steps for board consideration. There was some stuff in the packet.
Some,
There's lots
a
of
little
stuff in the
bit.
packet.
very good research, thank you.
Dan, in your estimates on the cost of repair, is there a lower level of repair that would be adequate for a lower level
Increase the
of
footage.
road functionality? What's that?
I think it would decrease the footage, but what I did, I just wanted to point out that when numbers like 1.1 or 1.2, 1.5 million were tossed around, that was about 2,200 feet of Creek Road, and there's more damage, way more damage than that. And so I just extrapolated what I felt was realistic at 7,300 feet. And I also wanted to point out that the section from where the V-Trans driveway is, or our first stop, down to where the repair was done in 2015, that in itself could be around $500,000 based on the footage or the cost per foot that we could experience on Chartvilla. We'll find out about that fairly soon. So my point was that I don't think stabilization is the best way to go. I think long-term it's gonna be very expensive. And I think my concern is the can of worms that you open up. Once you started, how do you stop? How do you call a timeout? It's kind of like the old car you have. And yeah, it's only, it's transmission. Well, then it's this, then it's that, and it's this. And pretty soon you got a whole bunch of money in it. And how do you stop that train? And so, the negative effects of armoring that bank on the other side, the railroad track side, I think what you do is you shift all the erosion, the possible erosion, to the other side of the creek. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do either. So I just don't feel that armoring at a cost that you can't stop, and the damage on the side is just not the best way to go.
And the option to shift the road?
I think that one of the pathways estimates was, again, around the 1.2 or 1.5 million, I believe. So I think if you're talking millions, it's probably better to go with think about millions about moving a road rather than millions about armoring a riverbank and causing more environmental damage at a large cost.
I saw your hand go up.
Are you surprised? So, I disagree with Dan, I'm sorry. I think the numbers on the Shardvilla Road project from the engineer, if the numbers come in from the contractor to do that project at that price, I'm not gonna support the bid. I think I think it's ridiculous. If you're gonna pay that much to have that work done, then I'm gonna resign for the board and put a bid in and do the work for that price. Cause I think it's outrageous. I don't think it's realistic. I think where the armoring has been done well in the past, there's been no evidence on the opposite side of the creek that there's been any additional bank erosion on the opposite side from the armoring that's been done. I disagree with the idea that the armoring is spending money, putting money, good money, throwing good, what did you say?
Good
Throwing
money after bad.
Good
yeah,
money after
yeah.
bad. I think where the armoring has been done well, the vegetation has returned, it's maintained, it's there. The other side of the bank doesn't show any additional erosion. I did put a memo together of an idea to maybe get some real-life numbers from contractors that I would like the board to consider. So, anyway.
Is it your proposal, I mean, if what you're proposing were approved and feasible and so on, that the armoring could be done piecemeal and that and what I gather is that it's not a matter of, that the whole road is sinking, or that bank is sinking. It doesn't make any sense to me to move the road inland. That I think would be just a foolish thing to do, but and we'd have to condemn property, and that's, I think, being well used right now. But keeping it where it is, doesn't this get you into a situation where you're constantly going to be repairing something that is costly and this is never going to end? And I'm just.
I would disagree that it's not ever gonna end. At some point, you're gonna fix all the areas that need to be fixed gradually over time, and.
Little by little.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, how much do you value the asset of that road? Because if you choose to do nothing, it's not gonna get better.
No, right.
And it, value of money and it increases. The more time we spend,
Yes.
the more it's going to cost.
Yeah.
So there's value in doing repairs now before the money, it costs even more to do them. If the road is downgraded, it doesn't, if you drop the classification to a class 4 road, it doesn't change that repairs need to be done. So what are you gonna do? Is the choice then to just let it fall in the river and the town will eventually lose its right of way and its road, and we just aren't just gonna let that happen? I do think we don't know what the state will say as far as hydrologically connected roads with the new permits. I think at one meeting, Josh Garabian from the regional planning said the state may make us do something with that road because it is connected hydraulically. So we may at some point not have a choice.
Dan, can you clarify that about the state's position on the road? I guess I'm a little fuzzy about that.
Actually, Bill's been more involved with the general permit and the hydrologically connected road segments. Basically, the state has gone statewide and identified all the road segments I think they're 100 or 150-foot intervals that are hydrologically connected to a drainage swale, stream, intermittent stream, creek, whatever. And the towns have to inventory them and then address any maintenance needs of those road sections. I believe there are over 200 in Middlebury. So that's something that the highway department's gonna be addressing, is what are the needs to repair those, not repair, but maintain those hydrologically connected road segments. So that's kind of the background of the general permit, and
Does funding come with that mandate?
no.
Of course not. Could you define hydrologically, just briefly?
So if you have a ditch alongside of a road,
Mhm.
and it ends up going down to another culvert that crosses underneath the road and goes into a swale or eventually into a stream, that road segment is therefore hydrologically
Okay.
connected to a stream, to a Lake Champlain basin, basically.
So it's the flow path,
Mhm.
effectively.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so they've identified those sections, and I think they do in 100, 150-foot intervals. And so we got a map of dozens and dozens of them all over our roads that have to be inventoried and then cataloged, maintained, whatever, with best practices on how to decrease erosion, whether they be
Okay.
check dams or.
This is the stuff that came out, I think, 2 years ago, and that we started on with the clean water initiatives, okay.
Right.
How much of that applies to Creek Road? I mean, how much of Creek Road falls in that category?
I haven't looked at that map, but I would think quite a bit of it would.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. So Heather's point is well taken in that sense.
The state realizes that, it's a huge, back to the mandate, the state realizes it's a huge, cost to the towns. And yes, you have to do the inventory, you have to get a permit. I'm not sure on the year, I think it's this year or December, maybe next year. And there's kind of like, they want the towns to address this over 10 years. It's something that has to happen tomorrow or next year. They realize it's a huge investment, and as long as you're working towards it, you're in good graces. So, mandated with a long-term end game, I guess.
I'm wondering, can you explain a little bit how this situation is different or the same as the flooding situation in East Middlebury? I mean, are they totally different? Because in that case, we decided to do some work. Obviously, there are houses right there, but is this like completely different, just bigger in scope? Do you know?
Well,
Well, they're different.
Yeah, they're totally different animals. The East Middlebury Village is on the floodplain, the fallout, if you will, of that river that comes down from the mountains. If, like a lot of areas, if you looked at it today, you wouldn't build it there. You dig, like you've noticed the gas company down in East Middlebury, what are they digging up? Nothing but a bunch of rocks. So that whole area was just a deposit zone for when the glaciers, melted and the rocks came flying down the river. They ended up in East Middlebury, and somebody said, oh gee, that's a great place to put, mills for power. And so a village grew up there. Creek Road was at one point, or Creek Road area was at one point woodlands and floodplain woodlands. And,
That whole thing.
1860s, the sheep came along and people cleared the land and knocked the trees down. They started agriculture. And so there you have agriculture there, and you have a village, in East Middlebury.
And has the bank shrunk since the road was built?
When the road was built decades ago?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The road was built in the 1700s,
Right, that's what,
and it's been there
I mean,
since
was it
then.
built further away from the bank, and the bank has, I'm asking if the river is meandering in that direction, is
I
that?
think there were pictures in Pathways report, some older aerial footages, and unlike the East Middlebury River,
It's more
Creek Road has been actually very stable.
Okay, it's not.
It's not,
Okay.
you know, if you look at some of the, and that information is in that Pathways report.
I think more of the erosion, is attributed to the farmland, you know, so in fact, maybe building up more buffers might slow that down too, as well as the possibility of moving the road or creating the repair with this other technique. So I'm inclined to support Heather, because I know that she's very fiscally careful, and I know she doesn't want to waste our money, and I think that it is a valuable road. I think, or wonder if it's a vote we put before us at town meeting, you know, if we're looking at a big price tag on its future. Like, does the community value this resource? And I think that we might find that it does. You know, I mean, I think we see the jewel that it is. We felt that when we were doing the tour that night. So I agree that, you know, whether we classify it as 3 or 4, we're going to be looking at expenses and how we're going to have to mitigate that if we want to maintain that. So I am curious about the proposal to get cost estimates from some contractors and see what we get back as information as a result of that. And I'm wondering what other board members feel about that proposal.
I guess I find myself, I find Heather's proposal persuasive. I also agree that, I rather like Creek Road. It's very scenic, and to a certain extent, if it didn't have all these problems, I would say it really is an asset to the town in the sense that it's a rather pleasant place to travel in whatever method you're using, your legs, a bicycle, or a motor car, in a sense. Prefer that you use the first two, but nonetheless, it seems to me that on the other hand, the more it's like the plot thickens and it gets more and more difficult to make a decision, because I think it really is a very fateful decision for the town, one way or another, and I'm not sure I know enough yet, and maybe I never will, but I'm just. But Heather's is a non-expensive way of exploring possibilities further, which I think could lead to additional understanding of what we're up against. I guess so.
I'd like to make a comment.
Come on up.
In your decision,
there's been a lot of talk about Creek Road. You have to realize that when you're making this decision on what you're going to do with Creek Road, that road's been there well over 200 years, well over 200 years. I've worked in that area, farmed that area, farmed the same land that the Knops and the Goodriches are farming now. I'm 75 years old. I have not seen that road or that creek meander at all. At all. It's just a natural thing that's happening now. If we had maintained 3 years ago the problems, we'd probably have less problems now. We'd be way ahead of the game. I think you got to look at the long term. If we fix the issues that need to be fixed right now. Open the road, let it be used like we all apparently think it's a good idea. The areas that have been fixed properly, like Heather says, are doing fine. The one that closed the road 3 years ago approximately, if you look just north of that, that was done. Looks pretty good to me. I remember when that was done. It works. It works if you do it right. You don't have to fix you don't have to do everything all at one time. You don't have to spend $1.4 million, $1.5 million, $2 million to fix a road. You just need to maintain it. We talked about maintaining earlier. The police department. Their system's going to last another 10 or 15 years. The thing I heard was if maintained properly. Did you all hear that? Maintain the road. Fix it. My experience, I lived on that East Middlebury River. We farmed there for over 50 years. Fortunately, back when we farmed there, we were able to get into the river, the banks, arm them. We armed them with trees. We were able to do that, keep the river from eroding. You can go down there now and you can see that the areas where we armed the river are still in fine shape. That's a meandering river. That flows pretty fast. I think if any of you noticed on our bus tour, if you looked at any of the leaves in the river, in the creek, they're hardly even moving. There's talk about what's underneath the road, this real soft layer of soil and so forth. Yeah, it's there. It's been there. This is just nature, but it's not meandering. In a lot of those places, for example, where the road caved in, and incidentally, can't be too dangerous. The bus with all you people parked right on top of that. I thought that was quite ironical. Didn't fall in, did it? And that hasn't changed at all. It's wide open to the current, to the river, to the water. That hasn't changed from day one. That hasn't caved in anymore. The areas that you saw on your bus trip that have broken away, there's cracks inside the road. Yeah, that slipped down. Some maintenance on that. The armoring will do a good job there. But if you think about it, the other option, if you were to move the road away, been there for 200 years, hasn't moved. If you ended up looking at that option, you probably got another 200-300 years before you have to worry about it, if that. I've heard talk about climate change and flooding and so forth. Well, for about 30, 40 years when I lived down there, everything flooded every year. It doesn't flood every year anymore. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, we get more hurricanes. We get more floods, more drastic floods, but what are we going to do? I just think that you ought to really consider the fact that it's a scenic road. It's a road well-traveled when it was open. People enjoy it. People can still walk. People can still ride their bikes. People don't drive fast on that road. Looking at some of the information that was given as far as any road, class 3, if it floods, you close it. You close the road in the spring. You don't let people on it. That's just normal. That's what you do. Think about the farmers. Think about the people who own the land out there. How are you going to get to Perrins if you close the road? You going to build them a driveway? You going to upgrade my driveway at my house on Blake Roy Road? How much is it going to cost to build a driveway? Is Mr. Perrin going to have to pay for the whole thing? A lot of issues here. I really think that you ought to just maintain the road. You don't have to spend all that kind of money all at one time over the years. I think Heather's idea and proposal is a great one. Get some realistic figures, then make a decision. But keep in mind, all the people who use that road, maybe we don't live in town, but we pay taxes like everybody else. Thanks for the time.
Other comments from the board?
Well, I continue to think I don't have enough information to make a proper decision. So I wasn't necessarily inclined to go along with your suggestion at first, but it seems like a fairly low-cost way to move something forward. You know, there's still the issue, and yeah, it's been there for 200 years, but in the 200 years, the dynamic load, when you look at the weight of the vehicles that have traveled on it, they're heavier. Over time, you can see a situation where there's some, the river has just, or either the river or the water coming into the river, the capillary action has just continued to soften the underside. We don't know that. I hear you fully and appreciate the fact of we want to try to keep that road open. But if we're throwing money at a sinking ship, then that doesn't make sense. So I don't know if we have a sinking ship yet, or if we just have a hole that needs to be fixed. So I think Heather's suggestion has merit to it, and it will help to give more of the information that we need to make an objective, intelligent decision. And so I'm inclined to support that. And thanks for bringing it up, actually.
Thank you.
I already expressed my opinion.
Yeah, and you know, I think we've had a number of discussions about this. This is a very complex issue, and you know, there's strong feelings on I think a lot of people's part to have continued access to it, and there's a need from a lot of people that live along there, farm that area. It's one of those things where we also don't want to bust the town's coffers over maintaining one road. So I think Heather had a very interesting idea that would give us some maybe practical. We have, you know, engineering estimates, but maybe we could have some, it wouldn't hurt to have a little good old Vermont practical input too. And so I could support that. Fact-finding or cost estimating to give us another data point. I think it's worth to at least spend some money to make sure that we have all of the options exhausted before we are making a decision that's going to impact so many people.
I also want to mention that it is a bike commuter route from East Middlebury to Middlebury, and as we're trying to encourage more of that, and with electric assist bicycling really cutting the amount of time that it takes, it'll be a very desired commuter route, bike commuter route. So, and I've even known a teacher from Ripton that would use that route regularly, every day, you know, that was coming down, taking 3 Mile Bridge to Creek Road to the high school. So we could anticipate that too, and it's so lovely.
Well, they're all, I mean, all these items are all part of the the equation and what we have to look at and as we evaluate. I mean, I jotted down about 7 options that I could think of to do with that road, and there's probably others. We don't have enough information to do a true option analysis of everything. So Heather's suggestion moves us closer toward that, and I think we have to be prepared for what the answer may ultimately be. And I mean, it may be after this effort, it comes back that it's gonna be a hellishly expensive thing to fix. And then we have to decide, do we proceed with that? Because Brian's point is absolutely right. It's a lot of money with the limited resources we have to spend on a fairly small section of infrastructure. But I'm going to say, let's move this toward helping us get the information we need to come up with a solution and direction. And I'm fine with it.
Dan?
I think you have to consider that just having a contractor show up and say, here's my proposal, it has to be permittable.
Yes.
You know, stream alterations has to permit the work, in other words, accept the mode of repair. Army Corps of Engineers has to do the same, they're gonna want engineering drawings on it. You just can't show up and say, here's my estimate to do it. They would have to include the engineering required to make it a permittable project, otherwise it doesn't do anything. I don't care if it's 30,000 or 130,000.
Couldn't you specify that?
A project that can be permitted to actually occur. So that would have to be in consideration. The contractor, any contractor would have to come with that permittable project.
So,
You're absolutely correct, and we would challenge these numbers.
so the reason for the stipend is because there's no guarantee that contractors would get any work out of the proposals they put together. And there would need to be additional details worked out so that what contractors were providing for comparison was comparable. You know, some, site visit, documentation so that everybody's on the same page. But Army Corps has said that we can do armoring, correct?
Yes, you can.
Yes, so I don't think I'm suggesting that we get prices for anything that's not permittable, because I'm talking about a price for armoring, a price for the stabilization per the pathways plan, which would involved fabric layers and vegetation planting, which I don't think we've seen any pricing on other than what Pathways provided. I'm pretty sure of that. I can't recall if they had done, I'd have to go back and look because it's been so long, but I think they came up with that plan because they had done it in other areas. So it would be curious to know how those areas where that work can be done, how's it holding up? And then setting the road over, is that something that wouldn't be permissible? I mean, the only reason that couldn't be done is if property owners weren't willing to give right away. So I don't think I'm suggesting anything in this proposal that wouldn't be permittable, if we decided we wanted to move forward with it. Recognizing that if we did want to, there would be additional cost for engineering to do the work.
So my question is, what's the criteria for the contractors we select?
Well, I was hoping that we could identify a third party to, Dan can make suggestions based on where work's been done in the past, and I have a couple of ideas. When we evaluated the Pathways proposal, we had a small subcommittee that worked with them and reviewed their progress. We could certainly have the same setup with a small subcommittee to do the same type of work. And Susan's here, and I know she served on that subcommittee before and isn't currently on the Selectboard or Infrastructure, but maybe she would be willing. Sorry, I'm suggesting something I haven't talked to you about. But maybe she would be willing to to work. I think it was Kathleen and Dan and Susan and Judy,
I think Dean
or
was
Chris
on it.
Robbins. So, there could be a small subcommittee to make the recommendations.
I would certainly like to have somebody who would be affected by the decision either way to be part of that, so one of you four guys back there would be invited on board. Okay, that would be good.
When we're talking about the options, we talked about shifting the road and whether that might be easier and less expensive. And I wonder if, we talked about it at the last one, but I don't think we've gone anywheres on it, which is to talk to the property owners that have the frontage in affected areas and see if they're willing to allow a greater right-of-way to shift the road to continue to maintain and keep the road open and not have to go through all the armoring of the river and allow the river to naturally flow its course. I don't know, is that a cheaper, more?
In that way, they never talked to the landowners about that scenario, as far as I remember.
Correct. We never got into that. I think, you gotta remember, that report was from 2015.
Yeah.
River is a different animal today than it was in 2015, as far as the amount of bank collapse. So that's what gets me to the point of I think early on, we thought moving the road was gonna be extreme thought, and now it's probably not so extreme.
It's not, I don't think it occurred to anyone in the subcommittee at the time that moving the road back 25 feet would not be permittable. It never occurred to anyone in the subcommittee. So if you can't do that, then going back to look at moving the road significantly would make sense as another alternative. Because it just never occurred to us that you couldn't do that.
And that's what I tried to point out, that, Pathways was talking at the time, 2,200 feet, is the amount that you're gonna have to stabilize. So if you looked at that versus moving the road, 6 one, half dozen the other, let's just, do the armor thing.
Now you're talking 7,500 feet?
It's a different issue.
Mhm.
And so I think that, for me, it weighs more towards looking at moving the road versus spending much more money in the long term, to do the armor.
I do,
So that's.
I know. It's the options that are out there, and if you're gonna compare and contrast, you have to kind of look, you can't just look at one option, you have to kind of look at all of them and weigh them out together. So that's what the subcommittee did, so.
I don't think that right at the moment we have to repair 7,300 feet in order to open that road and use that road. Do we at some point in the next 30 years have to do repairs to 7,300 feet? Probably. But do we need to do it all right now? No. I would not agree with that.
I've spent a lot of time working on this, coming to meetings. And I've sat here and I've listened to the doomsday scenarios over and over. I have asked the town and the committees for 3 years to go talk to these people right here and ask them if they're willing to work with us to grant an easement if needed. Here we are today, and it hasn't happened. And that's a big part of the answer to some of your questions right there. And for 3 years, you can't even talk to the property owners. To me, it's shameful. I'm sorry.
It would be worth an explore for me, but that's what I came to talk about. That if you're gonna go back, if you're gonna look at it, it's worth looking at a couple of the scenarios that didn't seem possible at the time, but now, knowing what we know, maybe it's time to take another quick look at those and explore a few things. If the landowners aren't willing to do that with the land, that's a quick answer. I mean, there's no room in the budget for buying out a whole bunch of land. It would have to come from the landowners wanting to participate in that. It would get some quick answers though on whether that scenario is viable or not.
So are we correct in assuming that those that are here tonight would be landowners willing to provide those easements?
Tell you the truth, we're not the real landowner.
Okay,
We're related to the land.
all right. Can you speak on their behalf? Mhm.
Anything to keep the road open.
Mhm.
I think it's a little strange. I think we bought the property, there was road frontage, paid the taxes, and all of a sudden, you're gonna close the road. What that does to us is quite drastic. But yeah, we would be willing to listen and work.
I think if you close the road, then you gotta weigh the consequences of that. You can't take away access. So, I think we gotta weigh the costs on both sides of the equation. I mean, if you just walk away and close it, like, that's a really raw deal. I don't know if you guys want to be a part of it.
Well, no, we don't want to be a part of that. You know, we don't want to close the road. The situation is, are we faced with a scenario where ultimately the inevitable is the road is going to fail?
No.
And well, we don't know that yet. I mean, I don't know that yet. No, the engineer in me looks at a wide variety of options. I don't know that. I want to believe that it's not. But I want to be sure before we invest a large amount of the town's money into this section. So the ideal scenario is the road continues open and we're able to do that. What are the options to do that? And what are the costs to do that? And if any of those become acceptable to us as a community, then of course we're going to do it. But I don't feel I have the information yet to go along and make that objective decision. So that's why I'm going back to, I'm inclined to follow through with Heather's, and it's not going to provide all the answers, but it's going to get us closer to where we need to be. So I think it's a viable suggestion. Yeah, I don't want to close the road, but we also have the responsibility to use the town's money and resources wisely. And so let's make sure we're doing that. And there may be an answer that we haven't hit yet. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, because as I go through my 6 or 7 scenarios, and I do pluses and minuses on those, I'm still not satisfied that there's not a 7th scenario that I just don't know yet. So I'm game.
Just keep in mind, and I've brought it up before, there is some pretty defined statutes.
Oh, yeah.
For select boards to follow, outlining their obligations.
We have some right in front of us here.
There's more that
I
I
know there is.
presented to the town as well, beyond what's in the packet. Please keep that in mind as well.
No, absolutely, and recognize, we're not taking this decision lightly, obviously, because if we did, we would have already come up with something. No, we fully appreciate it, and appreciate the fact that you're here to present your point. And this is just one of those where suddenly, this is always the worst situation when you're in a position like this, because you're kind of faced with a bunch of bad choices. What's the best of the bad choices? And how do we make this work? So having the additional information, I think, is going to help us maybe find a good choice. So
I'd also like to say, I think having a small group work on it is a great idea. It was very helpful. It was good to sort of have a small group that was a little more mobile with it and could sort of spread it all out. So I'd encourage that too. If you need my help, I'd be happy to help. But I also think that the people in place are very good too. So obviously I feel strongly about it myself. That's why I'm here tonight. So I
Kathleen, one of the things that's come up, and I know we talked about it the last time we talked about this issue, was the the adjacent landowners' willingness to deed the town a greater right of way to shift the road, if that tends to be an area that maybe we could more cost effectively keep the road open. Can we draft a letter to those registered landowners and just send them and ask for a reply, whether they would be willing to participate, if that were the solution that makes the most sense?
Okay.
Seems like that would give us some more, I mean, we talk about that, we've talked about it twice now, and we haven't done anything on it, so I think, that at least lets us know if that's an option or not, so.
Part of the information we need, along with, I think, Heather's proposal, which I take it is for permittable options. I mean, obviously, that's what we're looking for.
I don't think I've suggested anything that's not
Right.
permittable.
Right, no, I'm sure you're not. And, I mean, it's a very complicated process, and I think it would be, as I say, I think it's a fateful decision, and I'm inclined to keep the road open and to preserve the road. But we have to do it in the right way. That's not going to cost the taxpayers an awful lot of money. And so it's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of considerations to take into account. And I would approve in this sense of a consultant. I'm not sure that we're ready to form a committee. I think in a certain sense, the committee that needs to decide this is the select board. And it's our responsibility as far as that goes.
So you're not in favor of forming a small committee, a small task force to?
If you have a committee of people with expert knowledge, yes, a hydrologist, some engineers, and so on and so forth, yes. But I think, but they're not so much a committee, they're persons with expert knowledge that can inform us so that we really can know what we're doing. I mean, I think that's what's needed.
My sense is that this small committee does bring experience and would be asking those questions.
I would like to know who the committee is and what their credentials are before we do that.
So I guess I wasn't envisioning the small committee as being a group of people to give us expert opinion, but more of a small committee to do the work of identifying the details of the proposal, choosing the contractors, collecting the information, and then, and I would, I don't know Kathleen's expert, thoughts, but Judy Harris, from Harris and Harris, is she, a qualified third party for some of this work? I don't know. Do we give it to a third party, or do we have a small committee? There is some work that needs to happen, and I do recognize that staff is already, it doesn't have any additional ability to take on additional tasks, so.
Well, here's where I'm at with it, and I'd like to proceed with it.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out, I'm going through this, trying to figure, okay, what does the motion say?
Yeah.
That's where I'm jamming. And it's as though I don't want to wordsmith the motion right now. So unless somebody has a great idea or thoughts on what the motion should say, I think in principle, we say, well, proceed with it. But draft a motion that we can then move forward with the project on. So, I don't know, Heather, you've worked on this, obviously, you've thought about it a long time. Do you have some wording for a motion? Yeah. Sorry.
I guess my question would be to Kathleen for procedure. Do we have to have a motion to proceed? Would you recommend a motion to proceed? Or can we start work without a formal motion?
Why don't we try to shape this into some type of a plan and come back to the board on the 13th and offer them a motion at that time?
Okay.
Yeah.
1 second, Dan's got something.
Yeah, I guess what I see is we're going around the circle like for the 5th time. And so we want to have contracts propose something. We have an engineering consultant who says, these are options. We have other engineering firms we work with. These are the details you would need to do to stabilize the bank. But we're not going to supply that, or are we going to supply that to contractors? It's part of their duty is going to be to provide us a set of plans that have been had not had approval by the permitting agencies. We just keep going around and round with this, and we're thinking about another committee, and we already have a professional opinion on what needs to happen, and then how do we get out of that circle? I think if you're going to want a solution to an armory problem, you go get somebody who will develop some specifications that everybody can bid on. Do you want to spend the money to do that? I'm just
What would that cost, Dan?
for one spot.
Do you have to engineer each spot differently?
Well, you have to identify, in a permit for the Army Corps and stream alteration, you have to have a set of plans. We're going to go from this point to this point. Has to be engineered, how many feet down, how many feet back, all has to be spelled out for them in order to say, yeah, go ahead. So somebody has to draw that, somebody has to do the survey, take the measurements, do the borings. I don't think you can have a contractor say, yeah, I can do this, and Army Corps is going to say, well, what are the subsoil conditions? Well, we don't know. Well, I can't do that. How do you know it's going to work? So, it's a novel idea, I get it. But there are certain parameters that those agencies don't want to see. We're spinning our wheels by not just going out there and having that presented to contractors for a spot.
Well, and that's why I go back to the issue of who the contractors are. And I want some that have dealt with that, and it may be we're going with the big guys, who could come back and say, these are all the risks you're taking, these are all the factors in there, and it's not quite as simple as one may think, but nonetheless, let's look at it and see what it does.
Dan, question. When they did the work a couple of years ago on North there, that one big section, there were no engineered plans for that, correct?
Correct. I had to develop a sketch and give it to Army Corps. I think since then they've changed how they're operating. They want more detail. Stream alteration is more involved. It's a different world than it was in 2015. It's a different world than in 2008 when we did the work down there. It's different. They want more comfortable.
But you're still talking one solution. You're talking armory. You haven't even looked at moving the road.
Which is what I think I was trying to get from what I proposed was, in my experience, in my, working with my husband's business and stuff, engineers put prices together on projects. It doesn't necessarily mean they have real life project experience for those numbers. And that's why I was tending to lean towards picking contractors to put the numbers together, preferably ones that have done similar type work, because they have real life, on the ground, done this kind of work before. They know what it's gonna cost. And I guess I was just trying to get some numbers in my head so I could say, this is the, this is the actual direction that makes sense number-wise. And it could, maybe it's not armoring, so if we spend all the money to pay for engineering for one spot for armoring, we still don't have an idea of what Pathways proposal for a driveway to Mark Perrin's was like $1.3, $1.4 million. It was more than their original estimate to do the 25, foot offset. So that's why we chose that direction, because it was a less expensive option. Now numbers, I don't know.
So we're not making a lot of headway here, so perhaps I could work with Heather, come up with a solid proposal for the board's consideration.
That's wise. I think that's wise. I mean, I see where you're going with the thing. I mean, or I think your intent, what you intend to do, I mean, you're hoping to achieve, I think. And it's more information, and that's not a bad thing. So I agree.
So, can we target the second meeting in November? I think that would give us time to get a letter out, and just see if the other option of moving the road is something that landowners are interested in out there. And give you time to maybe develop. I think we've gotten a lot of feedback on some of the issues that would exist with sending out a request. Maybe we can work towards with Kathleen to come up with that as another option, and then we can discuss it. I think it's clear the board is really struggling with this. This is because we're looking for more data, and it costs a lot of money to get some of this data and to have accurate data. And we don't want to spend good money after bad, but we want to make sure we're doing something to move that project forward. So let's see if we can at least get some definitive answer on whether option 2 is a viable option. Okay.
All right.
Laura.
Okay.
Personnel Committee.
On a lighter note.
I hope so.
Can I just say one thing? I don't, like, I'm kind of new to it. It seems like if Route 7 has a hole, we fix it. Now, part of the bank caved away and closed it. Like, why didn't you dump in rock and start fixing it? Rather than let it go on, and the hole gets bigger, and it just seems like everybody's at fault. Something should have been done. Like, if there was no heat here, you can say, well, let's wait for a couple of years, and we really ought to fix it. I don't know, it just seems like something, maybe I missed something. Why wasn't it armored right away? Who came up with the idea, let's close it? But that's my vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the Personnel Committee met to review a request for a new full-time position for Assistant Librarian for Adult Services and Circulation. This person would report to Chris Kirby, and what Dana Hart explained to us was that given the high use of this particular library, it really is understaffed, and it would allow Chris to focus better on technology support and the inventory of the adult program. And this assistant would work on at the actual programming and working with volunteers. It would also provide more coverage for the circulation desk, which would be providing more consistent customer service. Volunteers would continue to serve the library, but they would be actually better directed by the staff in that capacity. So we felt that the timing of the request was very appropriate and that it should be included in the next budget so that we could weigh it against other requests that would come before us, including potentially requests of other departments to look at their staffing and weigh that, especially since other staff hasn't had an opportunity to do that. So Victor and Brian, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I thought Dana made a very convincing case for the position and what she hopes to accomplish with it, so far as the library's program is concerned. And it seems to me there's no argument with that. The issue really is, can we afford it? And there are other demands on our budget. So it would be really a question to be decided budget time, when we know we have a big picture of what the other needs are. And I think she understood that.
Yep, so that
Thank
pretty
you.
much summarizes it.
All right, any questions of Laura?
No.
Okay. Kathleen,
Yes.
Housing Vermont?
Yes, as Rewa Worthington mentioned last time, she's asking for the board's approval for the addition of the Addison County Housing Group to join a partnership, the Smith Housing Limited Partnership, as a co-general partner, along with the existing general partner Housing Vermont.
Move
Pleasure
that.
of the board. Move that.
Not going to say it all again.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
Okay. Okay, also in your packet, you have a proposed memorandum of understanding for the maintenance of Marble Works Riverfront Improvement Project. Bill Kernan has provided you with a history of the project. In short, the town and Marble Works Partnership have negotiated a memorandum of understanding for the maintenance of the park. Mutually acceptable terms. The town, Marble Works Partnership would invoice the town $4,000 a year. And we think that that is a reasonable price for the amount of work involved in the maintenance of the project.
Can I ask, so it was a little unclear to me. This doesn't give them any ability to change the park. This is just maintenance.
Just
really.
maintenance.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
But they could make plantings.
They could do
Plant
plants,
things.
so that could
They
change.
can't do dirt work, but they can do plantings, is my understanding.
We have been trying to make our plantings more easy to maintain, and that could be a reason for change in the plantings.
Yeah,
So does the town have any, so if they're gonna do any plantings, is that, just, there's a beautiful view there, and I would just like to make sure we still have some say in the overall.
Oh, absolutely. We
Okay.
have a whole site plan that was filed and approved, and we
Okay.
would have to stay consistent with the terms of that.
Okay.
I do think they have a vested interest. It beautifies their property as well, and maybe they will do a better job. I think they're looking,
That's the goal,
yeah.
is to do a better job.
And not that we don't do a good job, but that's kind of the last
Well,
spot, It's-
That's kind of you to say, Brian. We could up our game.
So, pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the revised memorandum of understanding for the Marble Works Riverfront Improvement Project.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Approval of check warrants. Lindsay?
So, motion to approve the total expenditures in the amount of $427,566.66, consisting of $334,738.60 for accounts payable and $92,828.06 for payroll, for the pay period of October 10th, 2018 through October 23rd, 2018.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Kathleen?
Okay. So first in your packet is the annual Small Business Saturday proclamation. That's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, when we want to promote shopping at our local businesses. And this is for the board's approval and signature, please.
I'll make a motion to proclaim Saturday, November 24th, 2018, Small Business Saturday in Middlebury. I guess that's all I need to say. I don't need to read
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moving second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Will your Middlebury money be exponentially increased? Your
You
chances
can
of-
play the mid-money match.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I've got my card about a quarter full.
Then the Addison County Economic Development Corporation Board has asked the town for its resolution appointing the town's designee to their board for January 1st to December 31st, 2019. I have served in that capacity for the last 6 years, and if there is a board member that's interested, I'm happy to pass that along, or to advertise the availability of the position, if no one here is interested.
Did you want continuity on the board, Kathleen, or,
I was thinking we could move to a different representative.
okay?
It's something to think about.
Yeah,
I'll put it on the next agenda.
okay.
Okay.
Mark your calendar for Monday, November 5th, when the DRB will be having a public hearing to determine whether the Blue Spruce Motel structure destroyed by fire has been abandoned and whether the lack of maintenance has given rise to any or all of the following conditions. 1, a threat to public health or safety. 2, an undue adverse impact on the aesthetics of the neighborhood and surrounding area, and/or undue adverse impact on neighboring property values. 7 o'clock here at the town offices on Monday, November 5th. And then
Good to keep it moving.
we have in the Academy Street lot, the Efficiency Vermont's Zero Energy Modular Program unit is on display. And from October 23rd to November 12th, with open houses on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 6, and Saturdays from 10 to 12. And that, there was one addition to the town manager's report, and that is the approval of the planning advance loan for the wastewater treatment facility. So the board approved an application for a planning advance loan for $140,000 for the long-term planning for the wastewater treatment facility. We were awarded that grant funding, that loan funding, and these are the documents to accompany that. You have motions in your packet, and the documents are in your packet.
I'll make a motion to authorize Board Chair Brian Carpenter to sign the Vermont State Revolving Fund Loan Agreement for the 20-year evaluation of the wastewater treatment facility.
I'll second.
Does that mean I'm personally signing?
I think so.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I further move to sign the general obligation note for $140,000 at 0 interest, payable beginning August 1st, 2023. Can I do the next two together?
Sure.
And to sign the resolution and certificate of the Vermont Clean Water State Revolving Loan. Nope. Vermont Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
With the centrifugal. Second.
Moving second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Never gonna live that one down.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. that conclude your report?
And that
Kathleen?
is it.
All right. Board member concerns. Heather?
I'm good. Thank you all for your support in the Creek Road discussion, and I hope it will give us some answers to move forward.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Again, in our packet, we have all these committee reports, Planning Commission, Economic Health, et cetera, Parks and Rec, Infrastructure. So I'm really impressed with all the work, again, of all these committees. And I did have a couple of small questions from those reports. For Parks and Rec, Farhad, I was wondering about the water faucet that was referenced for Middlebury Rec Park.
Yes.
Where would that be? Is that like part of the warming hut, or would it be a standalone?
It's in the warming hut, I think.
So is it outside, so you would be able to access it from the outside? Or,
That's what I think, but
okay.
yeah.
Is
I
this,
have to-
is this part
Oh,
of the
this is-
water bottle filling station?
Yes, the water
Okay.
bottle. Is there one outside now, or this would be
Yeah.
added?
There is one outside the warming hut, but I believe it is not functional at the moment.
It's just, yeah.
So when would this be installed?
It's in the
It's part of the
budget.
capital budget for
This is
FY
part of
'20.
that,
Oh, so it's proposed, okay.
Yes,
Okay,
it's been proposed for the capital
for the capital
budget.
Okay, well, I'm glad to see that. I think that's important. And in infrastructure, I caught a reference to the electric utility vehicles not being ideal, I guess, which I found interesting because I know we've been watching for that to see if it makes sense to acquire one as part of our
So
fleet.
I think for the particular application, you're talking about the UV?
The Gator.
The UTV discussion?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that particular unit is for, or being proposed for ground maintenance, like baseball field maintenance,
Right.
field maintenance. And I think Bill's response was that in his evaluation, they didn't have the capacity he needed for the job that he was trying to do for that.
Okay.
If you have something different, you certainly could provide that information to him.
I don't, I was just following it because I think it's good that we're looking at it,
Yep.
consistent with our policy. So,
When is that? When are we planning to purchase that?
It's part of the capital, again, it's a suggested addition to the capital budget.
So we have time, we would have time to look into it more if the Energy Committee, for example, wanted to look into it
Yes.
and bring options to the
Yes.
table.
I mean, we haven't even gotten to the point of approving the capital budget yet, so
Right, okay, good.
I think it may be a little bit premature.
Yeah, okay.
and finally, I would just say to people who are watching tonight, or catching up with us, that, this is the time when we're gearing up for our budget discussions. So if you have something to say about our direction, this is a good time to start to participate in our process. As you can see, a lot of our department heads are starting to look at capital projects, and this is a good time to be
Yeah, the capital
weighing in.
budget will be decided at the next infrastructure committee, unless we find we have things further, in which case it will push it into into a second meeting in November, but.
So in that regard, the capital budget as it currently stands is available in the Infrastructure Committee packet for November 9th. So anybody that's interested in that they can take a look both at the summary and all of the individual budget request sheets.
Right. So a large question, like the macro question, is like whether we look at, and I know this was one of our goals, to try to really keep our budget flat, not increase it. And as we look at some of these things that are coming before us, I'm not sure of our capacity to do that, but I want to weigh again, what our constituents are valuing. Maybe they do want this addition to staff at the library, and it might result in a slight increase in our budget, or there's a capital improvement project that they value. So I'm just thinking about that bigger question, and I know we've asked ourselves that before, so I'm just starting to think.
Yeah. We do need to start thinking about it.
That's it.
Yeah, so infrastructure's been in budget mode for a couple of meetings now, so.
Yeah, it's coming. Lindsay?
I just wanted to acknowledge the amazing work of our EMS and firefighters in locating an elderly gentleman who went missing in East Middlebury in the past week or so. They really, in all likelihood, saved his life. They were out there till 1 a.m. They were going door to door. They were checking everybody's yards and garages. It was really amazing. I've never seen that many cars parked at the fire station. I'm sure there has been in the past, but that's, I've lived there for a few years, and that's, a lot of people responded to that call, so I just wanted to acknowledge them.
Thank you.
Nothing.
Farhad? Okay. Laura, will you take us into executive session, Laura?
All right, in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law, the following two motions I will read. Okay, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of contracts would clearly place the select board at a substantial disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its litigation strategy if it discusses the contracts in public.
Second?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss contracts and under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. We are in executive session at 9:02.